Monday Night Raw, Labor Day, the 6th. Okay, so Raw starts out with the Nexus. The 5 of them that are left anyway, they're in the ring, and they're talking about their victory on Monday Night Raw last week, which was essentially just a 5-man version of the SummerSlam elimination match. On this one, it was just WWE, in my opinion, WWE just corrected the mistake from when they dropped the ball at SummerSlam. Because the Nexus should have won to begin with, especially with people like Orton losing, Cena losing to the 450 splash by Gabriel, Heath Slater picking up the victory, over Sheamus. It's impressive. This is what they should have did at the pay-per-view, but they did it on Raw, so it made it a little better. Not better, but it smoothed things over. It wasn't as annoying. Then we have the anonymous general manager announced that Orton and Barrett are going to wrestle tonight, and then we're going to have Gabriel versus Cena. And the winner of Orton and Barrett used to face Cena next week in Cincinnati. Well, I live in Cincinnati, and they're already running ads here for Monday Night Raw trying to sell tickets. And they've announced that it will be Sheamus versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship, and Cena versus Barrett. So I'm sitting here watching this going, it doesn't even matter. I already know what's going to happen, essentially, with these matches. And then, so, yeah. But here's the thing, though. Clearly, I'll get to it in a second, but that's not the case. I was wrong in just my assumption. Then Jericho and Edge. The GM announces that since Jericho and Edge were basically just being cheap and trying to get out of their match last week, that they have to wrestle, and if they lose their spot in the Night of Champions match for the WWE title. So it starts out with Jericho. Jericho has to defend. Jericho defends his spot against John Morrison, and John Morrison beats Jericho, much to the surprise of everyone. So Chris Jericho is out, which leaves that question that he announced the other week, that if he didn't become champion at Night of Champions, WWE champion more specifically, that he would retire. So Josh Matthews asked him after he loses, and he doesn't want to answer it. And then the thing that's probably the most annoying is that even though John Morrison defeated Chris Jericho and kicked him out of Night of Champions, John Morrison isn't automatically the person who takes his spot. They haven't announced anyone to take his spot yet. Ideally, this could actually be pretty good. Let's say I want Wade Barrett to win at Night of Champions, just to be clear on that, but if John Morrison were to go in, he'd be a close second in my mind to win the WWE Championship. And it would be just fantastic. He could win the WWE Championship, and then after The Miz would lose the U.S. title to Daniel Bryan, he'd come out, cash in his Money in the Bank on John Morrison. Dramatic pause. Cash in on John Morrison. John Morrison would have one of the shortest reigns in WWE history, but he'd get it again. But this would just continue the Miz-Morrison feud that's been going for years, off and on. And I think that would be a really good feud, fresh faces in the main event. Then we have the Divas title match. Now, they've been building Lay Cool versus Melina, Diva versus WWE Women's title, unification bout. Now, this is a clear-cut face versus heel situation. So when they announce, Alicia Fox gets a title match right before the pay-per-view, if she wins, it'd be face or heel versus heel. So everyone knows that's not going to happen. So again, this was kind of a waste. It was a decent enough match. I actually think people underestimate Alicia Fox. She made a couple little mistakes on her mic skills. I thought they were going to let it go, but the announcers ripped into her a little. They could have been nicer about it. Because, even The Miz made a mistake in his promo. So then we have, clearly, Melina wins. Defends the title. And then, so then we go on to John Cena against Justin Gabriel. Since Gabriel pinned Cena in the elimination match last week. Gabriel gets to showcase a lot, and I mean a lot of talent in this match. But Cena goes Super Cena on him and wins. But the thing was dominated by Justin Gabriel. If this was MMA, which it's not, and it was to go to the judges, which it didn't. It didn't, because it's not MMA. Well, Gabriel would win. My point being, he got to dominate the match and showcase a lot of talent. So when he inevitably breaks off from the Nexus and he turns face, or he's kicked out, whatever the case ends up being, the fans are really going to get behind this guy. He's essentially the next generation of Jeff Hardy or something. You know, the fans are going to get behind him and buy his merchandise. I see it coming. Which actually makes a lot of sense that he was teamed with Matt Hardy as his pro on Season 1 of NXT. Then The Miz comes out and he talks about from where he was as a reality television star on The Real World on MTV all the way up to the point where he is now. U.S. champion and holder of the Money in the Bank briefcase. I feel like this was a mistake. There's a lot of people out there who still haven't got over the fact that The Miz was on reality TV, and they absolutely hate him, and they say there's no way that he could ever be a credible champion because of that one stupid statement, you know, that he was on reality TV. It doesn't matter. He's one of the most over heels in the company, but I think it was, I think most people have been getting over it. And the fact is like opening a fresh wound. He really shouldn't have mentioned that he started in reality TV. He shouldn't have. Because anyone who was a true fan already knew all the stuff that he was saying anyway. The only thing I can compare this to is what used to be referred to as X-Pac heat. You know, he was hated. There's people in the audience that hate him, and they don't hate him in the sense that like, oh, I hate him. Oh, he's a bad guy. Like, they hate him. They're like, I don't think he should be here. He's a douche. I don't want to watch him. And sadly, he's getting the wrong kind of heat, you know, by bringing that stuff up again. Then we have Daniel Bryan challenge The Miz for a match for the U.S. title at Night of Champions. Miz has to defend the title at Night of Champions. It's part of the gimmick of the pay-per-view Night of Champions. So it was pretty obvious, since the only two people he's even remotely feuding with are, well, anyone who's trying to challenge for the world title, which, the WWE title, which, you know, I count them as one person, because it's just whoever has the title is who he's got his he's got his sights on. And then of course there's Daniel Bryan. So he accepts the challenge, and then he tries to take a cheap shot at Daniel Bryan, and he misses. And who comes in to save the day? Making a post-Season 2 NXT appearance, Alex Riley, the varsity villain. It was good to see him show up, which leads people and myself to believe that he is going to keep a spot in WWE and not just disappear, especially being one of the final three. He was pretty much the whole package. He should have won. But since it was allowed to be controlled by online voting, it made sense that Kaval won. Didn't make sense at all that Michael McGillicuddy came in second. That was completely storyline related, in my opinion. So, yeah, that match is going to happen at Night of Champions. I already saw that coming a mile away. Then there's a backstage segment with Zack Ryder and Edge, where Ryder says he understands how important it is to be the #1 contender for the world title, and how shots for the title were so rare, because he got embarrassed in like a 4-second match with Sheamus weeks ago. And so Edge goes, oh yeah, absolutely, you'd be a sure thing. I want to wrestle you. And then he begs and pleads to get to wrestle Zack Ryder. And then Zack Ryder says his feelings got hurt, and it was a little bit entertaining, but I feel really bad for Zack Ryder. You know, in all reality, Ryder is actually pretty talented, and he would do way better if they moved him to SmackDown. He's getting humiliated like they tried to do to Dolph Ziggler. The writers of Raw don't necessarily have the same taste as the writers of SmackDown. So if they moved him to SmackDown, he would have a lot more chances to shine. And I think that would be the best move. Maybe just silently move him or announce some kind of a trade and send him over to SmackDown. Because if not, he's got, he's going to join the Future Endeavors Club, you know, best way to put that. He's going to be fired. Then we have Edge against the Great Khali. So, Edge against the Great Khali. Before this match starts, Edge had said that if he didn't get Zack Ryder, he was going to destroy the general manager's computer so that he couldn't communicate with anyone. Now, they should have just let him destroy it, and then had Michael Cole get a text message and say, guess you can't stop the GM from talking to me. And, but But they blew that and just had Cole say, "Oh, it looks like I'm getting text messages now." Ridiculous. So he doesn't destroy the laptop, and he defeats the Great Khali by countout, by outsmarting the Great Khali. They should have let this stand, and that'd be the end of it. And then, because that just makes me think, oh, he's like the new Cerebral Assassin. He's the ultimate opportunist. That's his gimmick. That's his MO. I think that's how it should have ended. But then they have the anonymous GM say, "Oh, well, that's not going to stand. That's too cheap. Restart." And this time it's an over-the-top battle royal, and it's no disqualifications. That should favor the Great Khali, right? And then the Great Khali, being an idiot that he is, steps right over the top rope and eliminates himself. But they don't let that stand. Michael Cole even comments on that. And then, so this time they actually, they finally let Edge win by pulling the Great Khali out by his leg. But they saved face, but they should have just let it stand the way it was for a time saver. Then we have Randy Orton against Wade Barrett. Now, like I said, I was getting ads here during Raw, since I live in Cincinnati, telling me that it's going to be Cena against Barrett next week. So I was like, okay, Barrett wins, because the winner of this match gets Cena. So I really just wasn't paying that close of attention to what was going on. I really didn't care. I was just watching, and then match didn't really last long anyway. But they swerved me. Guess that video was wrong, or they changed their mind on the fly, because Orton wins. So the fans of Cincinnati, myself not included, because I didn't pick up a ticket, they get to see Orton versus Cena, and that changes the ad that there would be a WWE title match on the show, but what are you going to do? So they get Orton versus Cena, which is decent. The only part that was that made that main event even remotely entertaining was the fact that Darren Young got to come back out. So I was afraid that after him being kicked out of the Nexus that it was over, and then we're going to bring him back on Raw anymore. But luckily they're back. They brought Darren Young back, and that's good news. Sorry about that. He was it's probably my favorite on season. Yeah, he was. He was my favorite on season 1 to win the thing, and he didn't even come close to that. Oh, and on a completely different note, before I end this video, there's a lot of people out there that are just huge fans of Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, whatever you want to call him. And I never really watched in the independent wrestling. He never showed up in TNA, so I've never really seen anything from the guy. But he's actually, he's growing on me. He's pretty entertaining. He was entertaining enough on NXT Season 1, but he's actually getting really entertaining with his comments about, oh man, I'm coming out to generic rock music that I don't even recognize, and he's got one-liners that they entertain me. And I hope that they at least entertain the writers on Raw so he doesn't get booted, because I think he's got a lot of potential. So,